Good evening, everyone. There's a silence that fills a space when you live alone. It's not empty, it's sacred. It's the kind of quiet that invites you into a deeper relationship, not with a partner, but with yourself. For too long, women have been handed a script that says, "You're incomplete until someone else chooses you," preferably with a ring, some roses, and a joint lease, and if you dare to choose yourself first. You're either suspicious, broken, or hiding something. Let's call that what it is, a lie. Living alone without a boy friend isn't a failure of connection. It's often the start of a truer one rooted in self-respect, emotional clarity, and chosen courage. Because it takes courage to live without the buffer of a partner. It takes strength to wake up every morning and build your life from the inside out, not from someone else's approval. Here's the truth: intimacy doesn't only come through romance. It comes through friendships that feel like home, through the joy of coming back to a space that reflects your taste, your energy, your rhythm. Through the slow, quiet realization that you can be whole, on your own terms. There's a powerful difference between being alone and being lonely, and it's one that too often gets collapsed, especially when it comes to women. Culturally, we've been told that a woman living alone must be sad, waiting, or somehow left behind, that she's missing out on something essential. But let's pause and ask, what if she's not missing anything at all? What if she's choosing herself, fully and consciously? Living alone isn't a void, it's a declaration. It's a way of saying, my life belongs to me. The space I inhabit, physically, emotionally, spiritually, is mine to shape. I get to decide how it looks, what it sounds like, who enters it, and who doesn't. That is freedom, and that freedom isn't cold or sterile. It's warm. It's rich with possibility. It allows for silence, yes, but also for music, laughter, healing, and creativity to emerge on your terms. Liberation isn't just about having a room of your own. It's about having the right to your own life. It's being able to sit with your own thoughts without needing someone to validate them. It's the ability to spend a Sunday morning in pajamas, eating toast over the sink, and calling that a holy ritual. Because it is. It's holy because it's yours, but let's not pretend it's always easy. There are days that ache. Days when it feels like the world is built for couples, for pairing off, for never being the one at the wedding without a plus one. That ache is real. But it's not a sign that you've made the wrong choice. It's a sign that you're walking a road that most people are too afraid to even consider. The liberation of living alone is not about independence at all costs. It's about interdependence by choice. It's about learning to love your own company so deeply that you're not tempted to settle for relationships that shrink you, silence you, or steal your peace. You know who you are when you're not being performed for someone else's comfort. That is not loneliness, that is self. Trust, that is freedom, that is liberation. From the time we're little girls, we're handed a story about our lives that we're half of something. That we're waiting for someone else to make us whole. It's in fairy tales, in movies, in offhanded comments at family dinners. It's the idea that life begins when someone chooses us. When we become someone's girlfriend, someone's wife, someone's something. And we carry that story, often without even realizing it. We internalize the idea that a woman on her own must be unfinished, that a solo life is a life paused, waiting for the real chapter to begin. But let me be really clear, you are not a half, you are not a placeholder, you are not a waiting room. The idea that we are incomplete without a boyfriend or a partner is not only false, it's harmful. It keeps us tethered to relationships out of fear instead of love. It makes us believe that any relationship is better than no relationship. And that kind of belief system leads to settling, self-abandonment, and staying small to fit into someone else's expectations. Rejecting this narrative doesn't mean rejecting love. It doesn't mean closing your heart. It means rewriting the story. It means saying, I am already whole, I am already enough, Anyone who comes into my life is a partner, not a rescuer, not a completion, not the missing piece. Being single isn't a sign of something broken. In fact, it's often a sign of deep self-awareness. It's a season or a lifetime of clarity, autonomy, and alignment. When you reject the idea that you're incomplete, you stop waiting for permission to live fully. You stop measuring your worth by your relationship status. You stop performing for someone else's gaze and start coming home to yourself. This doesn't mean there won't be moments of doubt. We are human. We are wired for connection, but connection doesn't have to come through romance. You can build deep, meaningful relationships with friends, with chosen family, with yourself, that nourish you in ways a partner never could. Rejecting the narrative that you're incomplete is an act of rebellion. It's also an act of healing because you're not trying to fill a hole. You're learning to see there was no hole to begin with. You are not missing anything. You are not missing anyone. You are already whole. We've been taught to believe that emotional intimacy lives inside romantic relationships, that the deepest connection, the real soul-level bonding, happens between lovers, between two people who share a bed, a mortgage, a last name. And while romance can be a beautiful container for emotional intimacy, it is not the only one. It was never meant to be the only one. The truth is, emotional intimacy can thrive without romance. It can flourish between friends, between sisters, between chosen family, between you and yourself. Emotional intimacy is about being seen and known in your most vulnerable moments, and still being held. It's about the kind of relationships where you can text someone in the middle of the night with nothing but "I'm not okay," and know they'll answer. It's about sharing your truth without editing, without armor, without needing to be the strong one. When we limit emotional intimacy to romantic relationships, we make the dangerous assumption that if you're not in love, you're alone. And that's simply not true. Some of the most profound emotional safety you'll ever experience might not come from someone you date, but from someone you cry with on the kitchen floor. Someone who knows your patterns, your fears, your triggers, and still stays. There is a sacred closeness that exists in deep friendships. There's intimacy in being witnessed over time, in being known across decades, not just dates. There's emotional richness in choosing each other again and again, even when life pulls you in different directions. And yet, the world doesn't always validate these relationships. There's no Hallmark holiday for best friends, no rituals for chosen family, no Facebook status that says, "in a deeply intimate, non-romantic relationship." But here's the thing. Just because something isn't publicly celebrated doesn't mean it's not profoundly important. Emotional intimacy is not owned by romance. It is cultivated through trust, presence, and vulnerability. You can build it around a dinner table, on a long walk, over coffee, in silence, or in shared laughter that makes your stomach hurt. You can build it with people who never kiss you, never sleep beside you, never say "I love you" in the traditional way, but show up in ways that feel like love anyway. When we start to see emotional intimacy as something that transcends romance, we unlock a much richer life, a more connected one, a more secure one where we're not waiting to be loved. We're actively surrounded by love in all its forms. So yes, love can come with roses and candlelight, but it can also come with a friend sitting beside you during chemo, with someone remembering how you take your tea, with a neighbor knocking just to say, "You crossed my mind." That's emotional intimacy too, and it matters. There comes a moment in every woman's life, especially one who walks alone by choice, when she realizes, "This is my story. No one else gets to write it, and I'm not hiding it anymore." But that moment doesn't always arrive easily. For many of us, our stories are heavy with the weight of expectation. They carry judgment from others, fear of being misunderstood, or a deep ache from the parts we've tried to hide. Society has a blueprint, especially for women, that says we should follow a timeline: school, career, love, marriage, babies, then maybe some room to breathe. If you step off that track, you're often met with silence. Or worse, shame. The shame shows up in subtle ways. Oh, you live alone. Don't worry. You'll find someone. You're so strong. I don't know how you do it. Have you thought about freezing your eggs? These aren't just small talk. They're reminders that your life is being measured against someone else's metric, that your story, as it is, isn't quite enough, unless it eventually aligns with what's expected. But here's the truth, your story, exactly as it is worthy. And you don't need to justify it, shrink it, or reshape it to make others comfortable. Owning your story without shame is a radical act in a culture that teaches women to apologize for taking up space. It's looking at the path you've chosen, or the one that's chosen you, and saying, "This is mine, I don't owe you an explanation." It's refusing to call your single life a season, as if you're simply between acts of a larger play that ends in romance. It's learning to stand in the full truth of your experiences, with all the joy, all the grief, all the contradictions, and not needing them to be wrapped in a neat little bow. And maybe most importantly, it's about unlearning the shame that comes from simply being different. Because different doesn't mean broken. It doesn't mean lost. It often means brave. It means you were willing to tell the truth even when it cost you approval. When you own your story, you become the author, not the character waiting for a hero to arrive. You stop letting shame hold the pen, and yes, it's vulnerable, yes, it's scary, but it's also the only way to live fully. Shame cannot survive being spoken. It loses its grip when you choose authenticity over perfection. So here's a reminder, if you need it, your life isn't less meaningful because it doesn't fit someone else's definition of success. Your choices don't require permission slips, and your story, your real, unfiltered, beautifully imperfect story, is powerful beyond measure. Tell it, own it, live it without shame. For generations, women have been taught to equate vulnerability with fragility. We've been told to keep our guard up, smile through disappointment, and never let them see us sweat. Especially when living alone, especially without a partner, we're expected to project independence at all costs, to prove that we're fine, that we're unbothered, that we don't need help, don't feel lonely, don't ever long for a hand to hold. But here's the truth. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the most courageous thing you can do. Vulnerability is not falling apart. It's the choice to show up open-hearted in a world that has given you 1,000 reasons to shut down. It's waking up in your own bed and facing the quiet without numbing it. It's sitting in your emotions instead of distracting yourself out of them. It's telling someone you're struggling, that you're unsure, that you're scared, that you're hopeful, that you're dreaming bigger than people expect from someone on her own. Vulnerability is also not about oversharing or broadcasting pain. It's about being honest with yourself first. About removing the armor and letting people see the real you. The you beneath the curated image, beneath the "I've got this" mask. It's about refusing to pretend your strength makes you immune to hurt. And let's be honest, living alone, without a partner to soften the edges or share the weight, means you carry a lot by yourself. You pay the bills, unclog the sink, fight the loneliness, and make every decision without a sounding board. That's not just independence, it's vulnerability in motion, because every day you're showing up for your life without a safety net, and doing it anyway. That is courage. Being vulnerable also means allowing people in. Not just when you're polished, but when you're in the messy middle. It's reaching out to a friend and saying, "I don't want to be strong today." It's choosing not to isolate. It's letting yourself be seen in your full humanity, strong and scared, joyful and grieving, confident and uncertain, all at once. And here's the beautiful thing. Vulnerability opens the door to connection. The kind of connection that isn't performative, but real. The kind that says, "Me too." That says, "I see you." That reminds you you're not alone, even when you live alone. So no, vulnerability is not weakness. It's not something to hide or be ashamed of. It is, and always has been, a form of strength, not the loud kind, not the headline-making kind, but the quiet, steady soul, deep kind that changes lives, starting with your own. If you are living your truth with an open heart in a world that tells you to hide, you are already brave. You are already enough. You are already powerful. There's a myth we need to unlearn, that the people closest to us, the ones we're born into, the ones we work with, the ones tied to us through tradition or location, are automatically our community, that proximity equals connection. That family always means belonging. That romantic partnership is the foundation for all other meaningful relationships. But real community doesn't always come from default. It comes from choice. When you live alone, especially as a woman without a partner, you're forced to confront this truth head on. You realize quickly that support won't just show up at your doorstep unless you invite it in. And while that can be intimidating, it's also profoundly freeing, because it means you get to build something intentional, something true, something that's actually aligned with who you are, not just where you come from. You get to choose who sits at your table, not because they have a title, not because they're supposed to, but because they show up with kindness, with care, with consistency, because they make space for the real you. Because you do the same for them, there is power in curating your people, in saying, I will not keep relationships in my life just because I always have. I want depth. I want safety. I want mutual respect, not obligation. That's not harsh. That's healthy. That's how you build a life where you actually feel seen, not just surrounded. And sometimes that chosen community doesn't look traditional. It might be a best friend who lives across the country but never misses your birthday, a neighbor who checks in just because, a coworker who becomes your emergency contact, a cousin who becomes your closest confidant, or a book club that turns into a sisterhood. There is sacredness in those bonds. And they deserve just as much honor as any romantic or familial tie. Choosing your community also means choosing not to isolate. When you live alone, it can be tempting to believe that solitude is easier than vulnerability, that doing everything yourself is strength. But independence isn't the opposite of connection. It's what gives you the power to seek connection that's real, not just convenient. You get to say, I don't need to be rescued. I don't need to be completed. But I do want to be connected. I want people who see me, who get me, who love me without needing me to shrink or shift. That's the beauty of chosen community. It's built on intention. It's sustained by truth. It's rooted in freedom. And if you've ever felt like you don't fit the mold, like you're too much or not enough for the people around you, maybe it's not you. Maybe you just haven't found your people yet. And that's okay, because they're out there, and when you find them or build them, you'll know, not because it's perfect, but because you'll feel safe being your full, whole self, and that is what real community feels like. There's a quiet but relentless message stitched into our culture, especially for women. You are not enough, not successful enough, not pretty enough, not thin enough, not partnered enough, not nurturing enough, not ambitious enough, not something enough. And when you live alone, especially without a romantic partner, that message can get louder. People may ask why you're single, when you're going to settle down, what you're waiting for, or if something must be wrong. Their words may not be cruel, but they often carry a hidden judgment that a woman without a partner must be lacking something, must not be quite finished, must not be quite enough. But here's the truth, one that may take time to believe, but one you must plant deep into your spirit. You define your enoughness, no one else, not your mother, not your friends, not your boss, not society, not the man who didn't call back, not the people who whisper about your life from the outside. You, enoughness isn't a checklist. It isn't tied to a ring, a resume, a bank account, a dress size, or how many people want to sleep next to you at night. It's not granted through external approval. It's not proven by being chosen. Enoughness is your birthright. It's already yours. It lives in your wholeness. It breathes in your quiet courage, your loud laughter, your thoughtful solitude, your imperfect days. You define your enoughness when you stop measuring your life by other people's timelines. You define it when you decide that your happiness doesn't need to look like anyone else's. You define it when you honor your needs.